Hi there everyone and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman and I'm excited to bring you the 35th episode of Mixed Media, The Paper Wishes Way. Today I want to show you some gorgeous 12 by 12 pattern papers and two really versatile stencils from the Stamperia Romantic Collection journal line. Now because we have these stencils, I also want to show you some of this vintage antiquing paste, also from Stamperia. This is a dream to work with, and you can use it to create some really beautiful vintage and distressed looks on your papers. I'm also going to be using some of the rice paper and die cuts from the collection too. As you can see, we have a lot to explore today, and I'm so glad that you're here. Come play with us. Let's take a closer look at today's supplies. We can start with the 12 by 12 pattern papers. So these are all double-sided sheets with really gorgeous, detailed collage designs. Just take a look at this. It's absolutely stunning. Now, if you are a scrapbooker, of course, you can imagine how beautiful this will be for a 12 by 12 heritage album. And of course, we card makers know that we can also just cut apart various elements and you can get a lot of cards out of one single sheet. Take a look at this. It's so beautiful. You've also got a lot of really nice kind of neutral pattern designs. If you're working on a scrapbook, and I've just pulled one of these vintage photos, this is my great-grandmother, and I thought, oh, that would just be so pretty to put down here, add some journaling, and you are ready to go. So those of you who are working on scrapbooks, keep this collection in mind. Now you've also got some really interesting sheets like this one here that has a lot of kind of predetermined spaces on here. Again, if you're a card maker, you can fill these with lots of different embellishments. If you are doing scrapbooking though, this is a perfect place for a photo. We've also got lots of cutouts in here too. I've got another big sheet here with some really beautiful square elements. And then of course you've got the cutouts here. And you've also got some on the inside front cover. Of course, these are really versatile and are going to come in handy for both cards and album pages. So this is the 12 by 12 paper pack. We also have two stencils. So we have the romantic garlands, you can see here, really beautiful floral garlands as well as some script on here too. And the romantic clock, which of course has a nice, great big clock image on here, more script, and then this really beautiful floral garland on here, which is just gorgeous. Now what's cool about these stencils is they are super lightweight and really flexible. Now they're designed so that you can easily use them for home decor, and if I flip over the package, you can see that they give some examples on here. Of course, they're also going to give you some instructions in quite a few different languages too here, but you can see how they intend to use some of these larger images. You can use them, of course, on your cards, scrapbook pages, and even larger surfaces. And because they are so flexible, they will easily bend around a round item. So if you wanted to do some stenciling on a glass jar, for example, this would be perfect. Of course, with the stencils, you also have lots of options for coloring. And today I'm going to show you two different techniques. One is a favorite of mine, which is using dye-based ink pads, and I'm using the Prism inks along with a blending tool. Super easy to do, and this blending tool is really nice for creating a smooth effect with some of these detailed images. So we'll be working with that. I also want to show you, though, this vintage antiquing paste. This stuff is a lot of fun, and once you start playing with it, you can see how many great ways you can use it to give your projects a soft, distressed, and kind of antiqued look. And you can see with this card example here just how rich and beautiful that antiquing paste looks. I've done the stenciling on here and then around the outside edge. So we'll talk about how to do that and take a look at the demo. Okay, now that we've seen the supplies, let's get into some of the step-by-steps. Because the pattern papers are such a lovely neutral color palette, You can either choose to emphasize the warm brown tones like you see here. You can also highlight some of the pastel colors in the background papers like this card, or you can have the best of both worlds, which is even better, and take advantage of those nice warm brown tones and bring out some of those pastel colors, as you can see here. I love the versatility of this. It gives you lots of different options. So let's start with a simple combination of these supplies, and we'll bring out some of those beautiful pink colors. So let's start with this card here. Now you can see that I've covered my card front with some cardstock, some pale pink cardstock, and that's from the Chantilly Lace cardstock pack. Then I added this beautiful pattern paper. Now the paper is patterned with the floral design, but the words that you see on here, these have been stenciled on. So I did that before I glued this onto the front of the card. And this is just text stenciled from the Romantic Garlands stencil using a blender tool and Prism dye ink. So let's take a look at this process. I'm going to set aside my card and bring in just a little snippet of this 12 by 12 paper. And this has some of these little pink floral garlands on here, as well as this really nice kind of shabby chic effect. And I'm using the Romantic Garland stencil. As you can see, this was one of my favorites, so I've used it quite a bit. And this one is really nice. It's got some wreath and half wreath portions on here, as well as this nice block of text, and then some other small individual words and sentiments too. Now, this is a great stencil not only for creating backgrounds and also your focal images, but also just to be able to create and build upon the patterned background paper here. So what I'll do is move aside this backing piece, and let's see, I'm going to do this element right up here. I know you can't really see it because it's clear on this nice neutral background. If you want to, you can tape it down with some of that hunky-dory masking tape. That works really well. I'm going to just hold it down in place for the purposes of this. And I'll be using the Prism dye ink for this and a blending tool. And this is one of my favorite ways to stencil. Dye inks are perfect for this, and this little blending tool really gives you nice coverage, but it's quite soft and it doesn't snag in all of these really detailed elements. So this is why I like it. The other thing that's nice about the Prism dye inks, you can see that raised ink pad on here. This means that you're able to pick up some of that inky color without it sort of squashing into the plastic base of the ink pad. So it's a little thing, but it makes a big difference. So I'm just going to hold this down and gently work with a circular motion. Now, if I'm pressing quite heavily, I'll get a darker application. If I'm working with a light touch, then I will have a lighter, softer look. So I'm going to hold this down with one hand and just gently lift, and I think you can see that pattern starting to emerge on here. Okay, so I'll pick up a little bit more of this color and come along down here. That hunky-dory tape is also nice for masking off some of the other elements on the stencil, because there are a lot of different images on here, and then you can mask off more easily the elements that you don't want to stencil. Okay, again, I'll just kind of lift this up and we can take a peek. It's starting to emerge. And again, just a gentle circular motion. And you'll notice, even though the stencil is quite lightweight and very detailed, my blending tool is not snagging or getting caught underneath some of those detail images there, which is why I love using that. Okay, I'm going to pull this off, and you can see at least a portion of that design, how beautifully that stencils and how you're able to get some soft and some more intense color options on here. Super easy to do and just a beautiful, beautiful look. Okay, so let me come back to our card. Now for the rest of the card, you can see here, there's my stenciling, and I did the script going both vertically and horizontally on here just to add some more depth onto the piece. I have another strip of pattern paper here, and I also have some hints of paper lace, top and bottom. Now this is the Chantilly lace die, and I die cut this from some of the pattern paper and just snipped it apart to kind of tuck little portions under the edges. Now the collage focal that you see here, the card focal, is a collage of die cuts from the collection. So I've got some nice chipboard elements on here, and this is one of the cutouts from the paper pack as well. Then for the card inside, I've got some more stenciling, again from that romantic garlands. I've got another chipboard element and a word cutout on here. So this is a really easy way to combine all of these beautiful elements together. Quick and simple stenciling, and a great way to bring out some of the pinks and the other pastel colors in the backing paper. Okay, so dye ink is a great way to add color and dimension, but let's also take a look at stencils in combination with that antiquing paste and see where we go from there. On this card, I've used quite a lot of this antiquing paste. I've used it for the stenciling that you see here. I've used it along the cut edges and also the torn edges, and even around my die cut scalloped circle and my regular circle on here. So this is a thick paste. It gives an instant vintage look. It's a really soft and pretty effect. As with ink, you can get a nice soft, light application. You can also get something a little bit more dramatic if you want to. Now, we're going to be stenciling with it, but once you start playing with this paste and really exploring it, you'll realize that you can also use it with dimensional pieces. So pieces that you might make from clay, texture paste, embossed, dry embossed images, or dimensional chipboard pieces. So it's a really versatile medium. We're just really getting the tip of the iceberg with this. So let's take a look here. I'm going to move aside my card and I'll bring in a piece of this beautiful pattern paper, and I'm just going to get a little bit of the paste on my craft sheet, and you'll see this is a really thick paste. This tube will last you forever. It comes out a little bit like a toothpaste tube. And again, do work onto your craft mat for this. Now I'm going to be applying this with a little piece of cut and dry. So normally cut and dry comes on a big sheet, like an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And I just cut it down into small elements so that I can just use a little bit of this on here. This is a perfect applicator. I do not recommend using your blending tools. This is going to be far easier. It's going to give you lots of control, and you don't have to worry about cleaning that off of your brushes. Okay, so on my card I was using the garland stencil, but for this one, let's take a look at the romantic clock stencil. Again, you can see this is a favorite of mine. We've got that great big clock on here. As you can see, you can use just portions of it. You've also got a beautiful garland and more of the script. So I'm just going to move that aside, and I'm going to pop this right down onto my pattern paper, and we'll just do this little portion here. So what I'm going to do is just pick up some of this texture medium on here and simply, same application process, gentle circles. It goes on really smoothly. And again, the cut and dry, also like the brush, will get all of the detail of this stencil without catching on any of those fine little areas, which can sometimes happen with other application tools. And you can see it's just such a smooth process. Light touch is all you need. And here we go. Then I'll just lift this off. See how beautiful that is. Crisp and clean design. Looks really stunning. I just love it. Now I've still got some of this medium on here. Now I can walk away and leave this overnight, as I did the other day, And when I come back, it will still be usable. So it does not dry quickly. It doesn't dry out, which means also that you want to be a little bit careful about handling this when you first apply it. So I have let my pieces dry overnight just to be on the safe side. You can also use a heat tool, and the heat tool will speed up the dry time as well. Okay, so back to my card. Let me find this here underneath everything I've got. One thing I want to point out about this element on here is that I've stenciled, but then I've also painted in this little floral image, and I use the Camellia Pink dye ink for this as well. So I'm going to show you this process, quite easy to do. I'll bring in a piece that I've already stenciled, and this is dry. So you want to make sure that that is dry before you move on to this part. And here's what I'll do. I'll just take that Camellia Pink, press it onto my craft mat, and use my water brush to make a wash of this. And then all I need to do is just come in and paint this. So that wonderful antiquing medium is not going to smear or go all over. It's going to allow you to add in some additional medium on top. I've got another little flower here, and you can see how quick and easy that is. And that's going to give me just another option in combination. And I just love that rich, dark color of that beautiful antiquing paste. I think it just works so, so nicely. Okay, I'm going to clean up my craft mat and whisk this aside. And then we can go back to our card project and take a look at the rest of the design. So on the card front, as you can see, I've cut this into a circle, and I've used hot off the presses circle dies for this, for the circle and then also for the scallop. I've got one of the die cuts here from the collection, and I also have a die cut here. Now I've edged along here with my antiquing paste and also along the torn edge. So don't forget, just grab your little bit of cut and dry. So I've probably got some wet medium on here. I've got a torn piece of my pattern paper, and then just gently come along and you can add that gorgeous antiqued effect on there. So another quick and easy way to put that to use. Okay, then for my card inside, I've got more of the die cuts and another cutout on here. Now this background piece here is some of the rice paper. This is the Romantic Manuscript rice paper. And I love this. I love this design. It is such a beautiful and versatile rice paper design. And I've just added a torn piece on top of some of the pattern paper from the collection. Now, you can also stencil with that antiquing paste on top of this if you want to as well. So lots of really great options for that combination. Okay. So now, if we really want to emphasize our rich brown colors, we can go for something like this card design. And in this one, I've added more texture with a really heavy application of that texture paste onto rice paper, just like we've seen, and onto our pattern paper. Again, a little bit of that Chantilly lace. So let's take a closer look at this process. Now for this card, I've started with pattern paper from the collection, and I've glued on top a piece of the Romantic Manuscript rice paper. So this is all that I have left of that sheet of rice paper. As you can see, I've torn out some elements here because it's got this beautiful collage background and of course this really elegant script on here. You can choose various parts of the rice paper to use. And so all you need to do is use a white glue. Creative Expressions has a really great one. And just simply glue this paper down onto the pattern paper. Then let that dry and you're ready to add your stenciling. So here's one where I've just simply glued down. Again, you can see the torn edges around here of that rice paper. Now this is dry and it's ready to be stenciled. It's really important. You want to make sure that it is completely dry before you move on to this next step. But isn't this beautiful? Where you've got the collage background of the patterned paper and then this beautiful element on here too. Okay, I'm going to move aside this card and let's get into the stenciling. So I'm going to pull out this one. This is the romantic garlands. And remember, we've got lots of different elements on here. Let's take a look at the script on here. I'm just going to pop this down so that we can have that going across kind of like a border. Okay, I'm just going to place this down. So I am on top of the rice paper here. And this is just going to give me another surface to do my stenciling. Okay, as before, I'm going to take a little bit of this antiquing paste and just a little bit will do. And I'm using my same used piece of cut and dry. And again, just position this down, working with that gentle circular motion. And again, if I want a really dark, dramatic look, then I can add a little bit more pressure. If I want something softer, then I can use a lighter touch. I just love how smooth this antiquing paste is. It just really goes on beautifully. So, so easy. Okay. Last little bit here. And again, just gently lift up. If there are any areas you need to go back and add more to, then you can do that. Lift this off and we can see how beautifully that stencils. I just love this. Crisp and clean, really nice dramatic effect on here. And of course, going on top of that rice paper, it's just a really, really nice additional layer. So I've got my collage pattern paper, I've got my rice paper with that beautiful pattern design on it, and now I also have my antiquing paste. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to move this aside, clean up my craft mat also. The great thing about working on a craft mat, and bring back in my card and we can take another look at this. So going back to the card here, I've added some snippets of the Chantilly lace. I've edged the entire piece with that antiquing paste before gluing it onto the card front. I've got a chipboard clock die cut on here and then a sentiment cut out from the paper pack and just finished it off with a little bow. And then for the card inside, I have more of the rice paper. You can tell I really love that rice paper on here. And I've done some more stenciling with the antiquing paste and added in another cutout on here. I love the texture that you can get with the rice paper, and I know that you can't feel it like I can right now, but it adds in this additional softness that you can really feel when you touch this. So whether you decide to go really vintage and antique, or maybe you like to go pretty and pastel, or maybe like many of us, you want the best of both worlds, I think you can find something within this collection to create the look that you love. A big thank you to our friends at Stamperia for this gorgeous collection. Now there is more in the Romantic Collection journal set, and I've just done another webisode that aired on July 11th. So do have a look on the Paper Wishes site and you can see even more examples of ways to use this fabulous set, including lots of techniques with the rice paper. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're super glad that you're here and we're really happy you're part of the Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them together in a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.